Digital twins, AI routing, massive screen walls tracking container flow across the terminal.
A strange kind of power is growing at the edge of the ocean. A port where the biggest machines on Earth move on their own. Cranes lift steel boxes like they weigh nothing. Trucks roll with no drivers. In the schedule, who unloads first, who waits, who leaves, gets decided by software. This isn't science fiction, it's already real in multiple places. Here's the twist. The more human-free a port becomes, the more it starts to look like a superpower and a weak spot at the same time. Because ships carry the goods that keep modern life running. Maritime transport moves over 80% of goods traded worldwide by volume. So if a smart port stops, a lot of the world feels it fast. That's why governments don't just see automated ports as new technology. They see them as critical infrastructure, like power grids, like water systems. And that raises a scary question. If a port runs on code, who can shut it down on purpose? To understand the fear, you need to see how the robot port really works. Start with the ship-to-shore cranes, those giant arms that lift containers off a vessel. In some automated terminals, these cranes are remote-controlled, so the operator is not sitting high above the dock. They can be in a control room instead. Then come the yard cranes, machines that stack containers in neat rows. In automated yards, stacking cranes can move on their own, following commands from the terminal system. In between the dock and the yard, you may see low, flat vehicles that look like trucks with no cab. These are automated guided vehicles, often called AGVs. One example is Qingdao in China. Industry reports describe the Qingdao New Changwon Container Terminal operating as a highly automated terminal, including remote-controlled ship-to-shore cranes and automated vehicles. Early coverage tied its early operations to the arrival of the container ship Cosco, France. In the Netherlands, parts of the port of Rotterdam have also become a symbol of this future. Reporting has described unmanned cranes and automated vehicles working around the clock at advanced terminals, where a small team can supervise giant flows of cargo. Even there, it's not zero humans. It's humans moved off the dock and into systems and control rooms. In Singapore, Tuas Port is built around this idea from the start. Tuas Port was officially opened on September 1, 2022, and it uses electrified automated yard cranes and automated guided vehicles, with operations managed remotely from a control center. So the no human headline is really shorthand. The port still depends on people, but fewer people in hard hats near moving steel and more people behind screens, running the flow like air traffic controllers. Here's where the real magic and the real worry lives, the brain of the port. Every container is like a puzzle piece. Which box must leave first? Which box is dangerous cargo? Which box needs cold storage? Which truck is waiting at the gate? The port runs on a terminal operating system and planning tools that coordinate thousands of moves. Think of AI scheduling in a simple way. It's software that tries to make the best plan. Fewer traffic jams, less waiting, fewer empty trips. It may adjust the plan when a ship arrives late, the weather changes, or a crane needs maintenance. Some ports also build a digital twin, a digital copy of the port, to track movements and conditions. And the gains can be real. In published case material about Qingdao, early performance figures described average crane productivity around the mid-20s moves per hour during a major early vessel call, with improvements reported later. These moves per hour numbers matter because they translate into less time stuck at the dock. For shipping companies, time is money. For ports, speed is survival. If one port can unload faster, ships choose it more often. That's why countries compete to build smarter terminals and megaports. Singapore's Tuas project is designed to scale up across multiple phases over decades. Automation also changes safety. Heavy equipment is dangerous. Moving some work into remote operations can reduce how many people stand close to suspended loads in moving machines. But it trades one kind of risk for another, because now the most important work site is the network and control system. And that's the moment the story flips, because once the port becomes a computer, it can be attacked like a computer. Ports don't just use email and websites, they also use operational technology systems that control real machines, cranes, gates, power, sensors, and traffic systems. Security experts warn that these industrial control systems have special needs. They must be reliable, fast, and safe, not just secure in a normal office sense. So how could someone disable a smart port? Not with one movie-style button, it's usually messier. A cyber attack might lock up scheduling computers. It might cut off communications between cranes and control rooms. It might disrupt gate systems so trucks can't enter or leave. Or it could force a port to shut parts down just to stay safe. We know this isn't just theory, because the shipping world has already lived through chaos. In June 2017, the NotPetya malware hit major companies, including shipping giant Maersk. Maersk later estimated losses in the hundreds of millions of dollars. News coverage described major disruptions that rippled into port terminal operations. What made NotPetya so terrifying is that it wasn't just about stealing money, it acted more like a digital wrecking ball. Later public statements from the US and UK governments attributed the attack to a Russian military operation. It showed how cyber weapons from conflict zones can spill into global business. And the years since have brought more warnings. On November 10, 2023, DP World Australia detected unauthorized access to its corporate network and disconnected systems to contain the incident. The company said it impacted landside port operations. Reporting described disruptions across multiple Australian terminals at the time. So when governments look at an automated port, they don't just see faster cranes, they see a single location where the economy can choke. Food, medicine, spare parts, energy equipment. If containers pile up, the damage spreads. That fear isn't paranoia, it's basic math in a world where sea trade carries most goods. Now we reach the part governments rarely say out loud: control. Smart ports rely on complex supply chains of hardware and software. Cranes, sensors, and systems can be built and maintained by companies across the world. Remote maintenance, legitimate remote access for updates and troubleshooting, can become a risk if it's not tightly controlled. In the United States, this worry became a headline issue around ship-to-shore cranes. Congressional investigators said they found communications equipment like cellular modems on some Chinese-made cranes that was not part of normal operating requirements. That raised concerns about possible hidden pathways. But this is also debated. The crane maker ZPMC has said its cranes pose no cybersecurity risk. Some observers warn against turning suspicion into certainty without public proof of a breach. That disagreement is part of the problem. Governments hate uncertainty when the stakes are national. Because even if no one is spying, ports can still be fragile. Foreign-made equipment, networks, and software can create vulnerabilities in port infrastructure. In plain words, the equipment itself can become part of the attack surface.
This is where the kill switch fear grows. A smart port is made of layers: sensors, control systems, business networks, vendor tools, cloud services, and data links. You don't need to break every layer to cause harm. Sometimes, breaking the scheduling brain is enough to freeze the muscles. Ports are also becoming more connected on purpose. The Port of Rotterdam describes building a digital twin and smart infrastructure to support more efficient and potentially more autonomous operations in the future. More data can mean better planning, but it also means more pathways to protect. So the scary question becomes this: if two countries ever enter a serious crisis, could a port be pressured, hacked, or disrupted at the worst possible time? Some officials frame this as a national security issue, not just a business risk. Here's another twist. Cybersecurity in a port is not like cybersecurity on a laptop. If a laptop crashes, it's annoying. If a crane control system crashes, it can become dangerous. That's why industrial security standards focus on safety and reliability, not just secrecy. This is why some ports are careful about how much they automate at once. Full automation can be brilliant, but it can also concentrate risk. When everything is connected, one bad update, one stolen password, or one infected supplier can ripple across the whole system. So what do governments do when they feel that fear? They regulate, they audit, they demand reporting, they push for stronger cyber hygiene. Knowing what devices are connected, limiting remote access, planning how to recover quickly after an incident. Globally, the International Maritime Organization has published guidelines on maritime cyber risk management. The message is consistent. Cyber risk is now part of maritime safety. In the United States, the Coast Guard moved toward baseline cyber requirements for the marine transportation system. A final rule published on January 17, 2025, established minimum cybersecurity requirements to help detect, respond to, and recover from cyber incidents. On February 21, 2024, reporting described an executive order aimed at improving U.S. port cybersecurity, alongside a push to strengthen the crane supply chain. Whether you agree with every detail or not, the signal was loud. Ports are now treated like strategic assets. Now we can answer the title's fear carefully. A smart port is not disabled by one hacker pressing a button, but it can be disrupted by many kinds of failures: criminal attacks, state-linked attacks, insider mistakes, broken updates. The danger is not one villain. The danger is dependence. In a practical sense, the people with the most potential disable power fall into a few buckets: attackers who break in, insiders who already have access, vendors whose tools touch the systems. That last one is why governments obsess over supply chains, because trust can travel through maintenance links. But here's the good news: terrifying is not the same as hopeless. Cybersecurity is not just about stopping every attack, it's about resilience, the ability to keep operating or to restart fast even after something goes wrong. Resilience can look boring, but it saves you. Separate networks so a business email hack can't reach crane controls. Keep backups that can be restored quickly. Practice manual fallbacks so the port can move limited cargo even if the best software is down. In real crises, companies sometimes revert to simple tools to keep goods moving. And there's also physical security and port security frameworks that governments already use. The International Ship and Port Facility Security Code sets security requirements for ships and port facilities serving international voyages. Cyber isn't the whole story, but it now sits beside fences, guards, and access control as part of modern port defense. The reality is, automated ports are spreading because the incentives are huge: bigger trade flows, bigger ships, tighter schedules, and constant pressure to cut waiting time. Countries want ports that win business and keep supply chains stable, especially when global shipping gets disrupted. So, the world is heading toward a strange balance. Ports will keep getting smarter, governments will keep getting more nervous, and the ports that thrive will be the ones that prove two things at once: we can move cargo faster, and we can survive failure without panic. The smart port that runs without humans is not just a productivity miracle, it's a test of trust. Trust in code, trust in vendors, trust in rules, trust that if the screen goes dark, the real world doesn't freeze with it. That's why it terrifies governments, not because the machines are evil, but because the machines are powerful. And power always makes people ask the oldest question in politics: who holds the switch?